Welcome back to the 21 Boom Guided Meditation Series. I am Coach Feeney, and I will be your guide this evening. So for this meditation, keep your eyes open and either gaze at a wall or at the sky or some surface that isn't cluttered with objects or changing perceptions. I just want you to stare into space and notice that you can see the space in front of the background you're looking at. Notice that you can see a shimmering surface of sorts in front of a wall or a desktop, and certainly in front of the sky. And I'd like you to gaze into that plane of focus and keep your gaze very wide and relaxed. You can also notice sensations in the body and sounds and thoughts, but then come back to this awareness of seeing. And as you gaze into space, you might periodically look for yourself. Look for your mind. Look for the seat of attention. Just very briefly. Don't make a protracted effort of it. Then just rest your mind wide open. As you gaze into space, you might notice irregularities in your visual field, things that are actually floating in the liquid in your eye, or little pulsings of light. Just observe all of that. And again, rest your mind without making any effort at all to change anything or produce some experience. Notice whatever happens. Leave everything in its own place. And now sit comfortably, and now we can close our eyes and become aware of the sounds in your environment. Simply recognize that consciousness is the space in which each sound appears. Let each sound articulate this space. Make your mind as wide as possible. This is just a metaphor, of course. Your mind is already wide open. See if you can recognize that. And as you listen to sounds, become aware of the sensation of sitting and the feeling of the breath coming and going. And notice that everything is happening on its own. You don't have to create awareness or perception or sensation. Everything is simply appearing and being known spontaneously. And as a matter of experience, you are merely the fact that all of that is happening. And all of that, this spontaneity includes thinking, of course. See if you can notice thoughts themselves as appearances of consciousness. In the last minute of the session, just close your eyes, if they're not closed already, and again, stare into the space of your visual field. Simply gaze into the shimmering darkness that you see there. Simply follow the breath as well, from the moment it appears to the moment it subsides. Okay, once again, it's good to practice both with eyes open and eyes closed periodically. I know we tend to emphasize sitting with our eyes closed, but it's important to get used to doing it with your eyes open. So I'll continue to alternate in these ways, especially because our sense of self, our sense of separateness, is so often defined with respect to vision. There are actually some experimental results that bear this out. If you change enough visual cues, a person's sense of what their body is can change. There's a famous illusion called the rubber hand illusion, where if you put a person's hand beneath the table and put a rubber hand On top of it, if you stroke both hands with a paintbrush in a synchronized way, the person's body sense will extend to the rubber hand. The rubber hand will feel like their own, and there are even more profound illusions that can be induced by changing a person's sense of where they are with respect to vision. I'll probably talk about that more one of these days in a lesson, but there's no question that we define our sense of self to a significant degree based on visual reference points. So practicing with eyes open and losing the sense of self in that context can make the experience much more salient. So I'll explore that more and more throughout. At whatever point in the day you're doing this, I hope you're finding it useful. There's a paradox here. This is a practice, and yet we're not doing anything. In fact, the point of the practice is to recognize something that is already true of consciousness. It's a little bit like looking for your glasses if you wear them, and having the experience of looking for them when they're already on. Those who wear glasses will have done this at least once in their life. We're already using that which we're seeking. Consciousness prior to concepts, prior to the sense of self, prior to the entanglements with each passing thought, that's already fully present. And meditation is just a way of familiarizing ourselves with it. What is the point of living an examined life? Why practice meditation, or refine one's ethics, or spend any time at all trying to implement a philosophy of life? Well, one answer is to live without regrets, and I think this does frame the project pretty well. Of course, most of us can only aspire to feel like we're using our time that wisely, but we should. We should keep this aspiration in mind, and it should guide us. The more you experience your mind at its best, at its most open and clear, the more you'll notice your failure to truly live from that place. Even with the people you love most, life can begin to seem like a nearly unbroken string of missed opportunities. The distance between who you are by tendency, moment to moment, and who you want to be, who you know you can be, indeed, who you truly are, can be very painful to experience. But I would encourage you not to get stuck in that place. Regret shouldn't become a sinkhole in which you merely contemplate your failures to no good end. You need to use regret to strengthen your commitment to being free. Yes, you failed a moment ago. There was that awkward conversation that you had with your sister about how she's raising her kids, maybe. You probably didn't have to go there, right? But you really are free to begin again in this moment, even while she still has that look on her face. You are utterly free to begin again, as though waking from a dream. Just drop your reactivity entirely. Become weightless, like you've just jumped out of a plane. Free fall through yourself, through the energy of awkwardness and contraction. Just rest as consciousness in this moment, and then when you seize up again, mere moments from now, why did you have to make that dumb joke? No one laughed, literally no one. And now completely surrender again in this moment. Just give up the war. This is how you free your attention. At the level of experience, there's only consciousness and its contents. And the practice is to simply recognize that again and again. And recognize, too, that everyone is merely striving to be happy, all the while chattering to themselves in such a way to deny happiness any place to land. Just for a moment, feel compassion for this whole catastrophe. This next moment is as good an opportunity you'll ever have to truly accept life as it is. Regrets can be like contemplating death. It can make you morbid, or it can energize you and help you get your priorities straight. Regret can seem unrelated to gratitude, or even seem like it's opposite, but they're really connected. In fact, regret can be a springboard into gratitude in nearly every moment. You can actually feel grateful to see your missteps and learn from them. And you can feel grateful to have a chance to start again in this moment. And you can feel this immediately. This really is a game of attention. Use attention well, and you'll experience real tranquility and ease of being. And if you didn't experience it a moment ago, you can experience it now. But use attention foolishly, and you'll be miserable. even when everything is good. Again, you have this moment and this. Enjoy the process. Commit right now to enjoying the process. That really is the only goal. The goal is now. And to do this, you need to forgive yourself every failure. Even now, you'll be borne away by thoughts. Recognize it and keep practicing. Not just in formal meditation or when listening to myself, but in every other moment. And notice those moments where you're taking a little extra care actually mattered. Where you caught a fleeting look on someone's face and asked a question that took the conversation in a new direction. Notice when you are able to pause just for an extra beat or two before vomiting your ill-formed opinions about trade with China all over your friends. Notice the incremental gains in wisdom, in self-awareness, and free attention, and enjoy them, even when they reveal signs of your mind that are less than flattering. The truth is, living an examined life is one insult after another. You have to maintain your sense of humor, and realize, too, that you aren't just practicing for yourself, you're practicing for others, to be better company for them in the end. You want to be a better spouse or parent or colleague or friend or all of these things. The growth of wisdom is not a solitary endeavor. So you know you want to minimize regrets. You want to minimize the distance between how you're living and how you will wish you had lived at the end of each day, and week, and month, and year, and at the end of your life. And the point is, no one can do this for you, and what's more, you must decide to do it because you're very unlikely to do this naturally, habitually, by tendency. And when you lose sight of this project because old habits have totally taken over your life, you must decide to engage it all over again. Living in a general vicinity of the present moment isn't good enough, and sort of maintaining your deepest values isn't good enough either. How could it be? There really is no reason to hedge your bet here. The future doesn't have to be uncertain. I mean, ask yourself, do you think you're going to brush your teeth every day for the rest of your life? Barring some crazy emergency, you will, right? Can you make the same decision about meditation practice? Of course, the goal of the meditation isn't to become a meditator or have a meditation practice. It's to recognize the way the mind always already is, and to have the whole of one's life permeated by this recognition. And if you aren't tending to do this when you're working or watching television or talking to your friend, then you need to train deliberately until recognizing the nature of mind, until that nature of mind becomes effortless. And there really is a danger of fooling oneself here, especially when one has made some progress in the practice. It's entirely possible to imagine that one is somehow beyond the need for practice. When you can recognize the nature of consciousness anywhere, anytime, and often do it, it's still possible to imagine that one is doing this much more than one is, in fact, and to get lazy, and to have old habits reassert themselves, and then to squander your attention in 1,000 ordinary ways, and in ways that you will live to regret. The greatest teachers that I've ever heard of, or heard, read from or listened to, who have spent decades on formal retreats, still practice meditation in their daily lives. The greatest athletes still practice their sports. I mean, how likely is it that a pro athlete would go beyond the need for practice? So ask yourself, will you commit to doing this until there really is no difference between your clearest moments of insight and tranquility and the rest of your life? Please answer this question for yourself.